What's going on, guys? I hope everybody's having a great day today. Please do me a favor. If you get anything from this video, smash that like button for me. And if you'd like to see more, consider subscribing. So by this point, I'm sure everybody has heard about the Idaho Four case out of Moscow, Idaho. It was 4 University of Idaho students who were slaughtered in their beds. The suspect for this case is Mr. Bryan Kohberger. But I'd like to go back to the beginning to get a sense of why there's so many questions and conspiracies floating around this case. On the night of November the 12th, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, went out to the Corner Club bar in Moscow, Idaho. When they left that bar, they went to a food truck and then caught a ride home. Took them about 6 minutes to get from the food truck home. They were home before 2 a.m. Their roommates, Dylan Mortensen, Xana Kernodle, and Bethany Font, were all already at home also. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was also at the house. Everybody was in their rooms by 4 a.m. At some point between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., a suspect enters the home, murders Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie, walks out of the house, and leaves. Police had no suspects for over a month and a half. But one thing that they were sure of from the very beginning was that this was a targeted attack.
Authorities now saying an edged weapon, such as a knife, was used in the homicide over the weekend. They believe it was an isolated and targeted incident.
Now, there was a little back and forth with this because initially police said this is a targeted attack. And then the prosecutor said, well, it was a targeted attack, but it could have been the person, it could have been the house. We're not really sure.
After detectives walked back their claim that the slain University of Idaho students were victims of a targeted attack. Moscow, Idaho police said detectives do not currently know if the residents or any occupants were specifically targeted, but continue to investigate.
Then the police chief doubles down on it after that and says, no, we believe that this was a targeted attack.
Hours later, cops added to the muddle with a very different statement. We remain consistent in our belief that this was indeed a targeted attack, but have not concluded if the target was the residents or its occupants.
What impact does that have? Huge. It's going to make this investigation much, much more complicated and difficult. And also, it's got big implications for everybody that's got a student there at the university, because if it's not targeted, that means anybody and everybody could be a victim.
Now, if you believe that this was a targeted attack or a crime of passion, it would seem that there would be some motive and connections found along the way. But instead, the only connections that we could find were what police believed to be a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra driving into the area, driving around suspiciously, making a few turns, coming back and forth, and then recklessly driving away around 4:25, right? So they put a bolo out for a white Hyundai Elantra 2011 to 2013. The only other item that we've been told about as the general public was a knife sheath that fit a 10-inch K-bar survival knife. The sheath itself has USMC stamped on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it came from a Marine. They are sold like that to the general public. On that knife sheath, they had a little bit of touch DNA. And with that little bit of touch DNA, they had no suspects. They had no matches in the system. They didn't know who it belonged to whatsoever. A month and a half after the crimes took place, after the police had insisted that this was a targeted attack, they arrested Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania, on the other side of the country from where these murders took place. But Mr. Coburger was a PhD student 10 miles away from the University of Idaho at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. Mr. Coburger drove a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra, and according to police, they were able to use genealogy to match the touch DNA found on the knife sheath to be the son of Bryan Kohberger's father. So they used that evidence to arrest Mr. Coburger. And from that point, we have heard of no other connection or motive from Bryan Kohberger to the victims of the Idaho Four case. Now, there's been rumors and there's been reports. People said that he was a regular at the Mad Greek and he had a thing for Maddie, and that was shut down by the Mad Greek restaurant. They said that that wasn't true, that nobody there has seen him there and nobody there is saying that he had been there. And then there was rumors that He followed all the girls on social media and he had pictures of them saved to his phone. But we know that later on the defense files a motion saying that there is no known connection between Mr. Kohberger and the victims. Think following on social media, having pictures of those victims saved on your phone, that would be a connection, if I do say so myself. They also go on in that same motion to say that there was no DNA from any of the victims found in Mr. Kohberger's car, home, office, or apartment. Now, if there's no DNA found in Mr. Kohberger's car, and there's no connection of Mr. Coburger to the victims, and the police believe that this was a targeted crime where somebody meticulously planned out this crime to attack a specific person or place, then what is that connection that made Mr. Coburger target these victims? It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, one reason that I could see the police believing that this was a targeted attack is because they believe that the suspect entered on the second floor through the sliding glass doors. If the suspect comes through those sliding glass doors, he absolutely must walk right past Dylan Mortenson's bedroom on the second floor in order to get to either Ethan and Xana's room or the third floor. So he had to have went past Dylan's room, up to the third floor, or into Ethan and Xana's room, started the first attack, and then moved on to the second attack, and then walked back past Dylan Mortenson's bedroom door, in which she says at that time she opened the door and saw him close enough to tell his frame that he had bushy eyebrows. She saw him good enough to know what he was wearing. She didn't mention, as far as we know, him holding a knife or being covered in blood. But that's not to say that she doesn't say that in the full affidavit from her once that gets released, once we hear about it in trial, however that situation goes. We do know that Miss Mortenson will be a key witness in this, and maybe they believe that it was targeted because the killer walked right past her door multiple times, even seeing her, and still choosing not to attack her, even though they had just carried out a quadruple homicide on her roommates. Now, that's also going to bring up a lot of questions about Dylan Mortenson and Bethany Funk, the surviving roommates who were also in the house on the night of this attack. But let's hold that for a while, and let's keep on this targeted attack nonsense. Now, one other explanation where all the back and forth came from at the beginning of this case is maybe it was the house. Maybe the house itself was targeted. So why would someone target an entire home? Well, we've been told that this home is a party house, that the area around the home is a known drug area. So we're not going to sit and say that the roommates themselves were selling drugs or dealing drugs. We don't know that. But we do know that there's a strong possibility that drug deals have gone down at that house. We know that a lot of the people that would attend the parties didn't even know who lived in the house. So saying that this could be related to drugs doesn't necessarily put the victims in a bad light. It's college, it's a party house, everybody's partying. They're all sorority girls. Ethan's a fraternity guy. That's how college goes. And people can expect perfection from everybody, but you're never going to get it. But you also can't be afraid to say, hey, this could be the case, just because you don't want to offend somebody. I'm not making any accusations about the victims because I have no reason to believe that the victims have done anything wrong. We did see that they were a little bit drunk, but that's all. So please tell me, how did the police know that this was a targeted attack at the very beginning of this case, before they had a suspect, when the only things that they had was a white Hyundai Elantra on camera and a knife sheath? If it's a crime of passion, you would expect a connection. If it's targeted at all, you would expect a connection. So far, we haven't been told about any connection from Bryan Kohberger to the victims. As a matter of fact, we've been told the exact opposite. The families have said that they have no idea who Mr. Kohberger is, and they don't believe that there could be a connection between him and the students.
Well, we've been telling you that the families of these victims have been looking for any possible connections between Coburger and their loved ones who were murdered. And we can tell you that the attorney representing the family of Kaylee Gonsalves says they haven't found any connection. They don't believe that Kaylee knew Bryan Kohberger at all.
If there's no connection, how is there motive? If there's no motive and there's no connection, how is it targeted? Now, I know the gag order does a lot to hold us back and not give us the information that we desire. Hopefully, Mr. Coburger is the person who committed this crime. Otherwise, there's an innocent man in jail while a killer walks free. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to see more, hit that notification bell so you'll get notified every time I post. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.